Okay, so we all want to eat and we all want to stay healthy, right? But sometimes it feels like the guidelines for food safety keep changing. So we're going to try to make things a little bit clearer today by taking a deep dive into the latest research on food safety at home.
Yeah, we've gone through a lot of material to try to really understand the key things that people need to know. I think it's so easy to feel overwhelmed.
So let's simplify. Let's break down the basics. Where do we even start?
Honestly, it all boils down to two pretty simple ideas: clean and separate. If you can master those two things, you're really well on your way to preventing foodborne illness in your own kitchen.
Clean and separate. All right, so let's start with clean. Now, we all know we're supposed to wash our hands, but the research really emphasizes this idea of 20 seconds. Why is 20 seconds so magical?
Well, you're right. It's easy to just give your hands a quick rinse and think that that's good enough. But what happens in those 20 seconds is that the soap has enough time to actually break down the outer layers of a lot of different bacteria.
Oh, I see. So it's not just about getting the dirt off, it's about actually giving the soap time to work.
Exactly. And I think it's also important to remember when you're supposed to be washing your hands. Obviously, before you start handling any food, but also during food preparation if you switch between tasks, and then again after you're done,
Mm.
especially if you've been handling raw meat, poultry, or seafood.
Right. We don't want to be spreading those germs around. Okay, so we've covered our hands. What about surfaces and utensils?
Yeah, that's another really key area. It's so important to be washing your cutting boards, your utensils, your countertops.
Wait, you mean after every single thing that I cut?
Ideally, yes.
Hmm.
After each food item you use it with, you should be washing it with hot soapy water. This helps prevent what we call cross-contamination. Like imagine you're cutting up some raw chicken on a cutting board, and then you use that same cutting board without washing it to chop up some lettuce for a salad.
Oh, yeah. Yuck.
You're basically transferring bacteria directly from the raw chicken to your salad ingredients.
So separate cutting boards, separate everything, and wash it all really well in between.
That's the goal. And then even for things like fresh produce, rinsing fruits and vegetables under running water is also really important. You want to make sure you're removing any dirt or potential contaminants that might be on the surface.
Okay, so clean, check. We've got that covered. Let's move on to the second big idea. Separate.
So when we talk about separating, we're mainly focused on preventing raw foods like meat, poultry, and seafood from coming into contact with foods that are already cooked
Yeah.
or that you're going to eat raw.
Because those raw foods can carry bacteria that can make us sick.
Exactly. You've got it.
So how does that actually work in practice? Let's say we're at the grocery store. What do we need to be thinking about?
Right from the start, even in the shopping cart, it's a good idea to keep those raw meats, poultry, seafood in separate bags, away from your produce, away from other groceries.
So their juices don't drip and contaminate everything. All right, so we've got our groceries home. It all goes in the fridge, right, Glenn? How should we be organizing things in there?
Well, the big thing is you want to store those raw meats, poultry, and seafood on the bottom shelf of your fridge.
Yeah.
If possible, in sealed containers or wrapped really tightly so that nothing can drip down onto other foods.
Yeah.
And those eggs, they should also be kept separate. Best to keep them in their original carton.
All right, so bottom shelf, sealed containers. Got it. Now, I want to talk about cutting boards because this is something that I think a lot of people don't really think about.
Yeah, this is where a lot of cross-contamination can happen. If you can, it's best to have two separate cutting boards.
Mm-hmm.
One that you use exclusively for raw meats, poultry, and seafood, and then a totally different one that you use for produce, for bread, for anything that you're going to be eating without cooking.
Okay, and if you don't have the space or the money for two cutting boards, then obviously washing in between with hot soapy water, just like we talked about.
Absolutely.
Now, the last thing I wanted to ask about is washing chicken. A lot of people I know automatically wash raw chicken before they cook it.
There's actually some debate about whether or not you need to wash raw chicken. There's a lot of evidence that shows washing, it may not actually remove all the harmful bacteria, and it can actually spread those bacteria around your sink and onto your countertops through those water droplets.
Oh, I never really thought about that.
So the advice is generally to just cook the chicken thoroughly instead of washing it.
Okay, so cook it thoroughly, no washing. But I guess if you really feel like you need to wash it, then just be super careful to minimize splashing.
Exactly.
All right, so to sum up our deep dive today, the two big takeaways are clean and separate. Clean means washing your hands thoroughly for at least 20 seconds before, during, and after handling food. It also means cleaning your surfaces and your utensils after each use. And separate means keeping raw meats, poultry, seafood, and eggs totally separate from ready-to-eat foods throughout the entire process.
Right, from the moment you pick them up at the grocery store all the way through to when they end up on your plate.
Exactly. It sounds like if you really prioritize those two things, you can dramatically reduce your risk of foodborne illness.
Absolutely.
So I guess my final question for all of our listeners out there is, what's one small change related to cleaning or separating that you could make in your own kitchen today?
I think even small changes can make a really big difference.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into food safety. We hope you learned something and we hope you stay healthy.